Hi, I have a question for you. There are no wrong answers to this one, so don't feel bad if you disagree with everybody else in the comments section, but I do want you to look at this from a 30,000-foot view before coming to a conclusion, okay? Now that Nick Saban is retired, who takes over as the face of college football? You got your answer? Good, because I have several. I don't think it's as easy as just saying Kirby Smart, even though he will be on this list, because in the new age of college football, there are going to be a ton of candidates that actually could reign supreme beginning in 2024. But who are those guys, and why do they fit the criteria of being the heir apparent and face in place of Nick Saban? Let's go ahead and talk about it. But if you are new here, welcome on into the channel, people. My name is Cole Thompson. I'm a radio show host based in Houston, and I talk college football daily. Look, we get it. The season came to an end. We are going to celebrate Michigan, but that does not mean that we're going to stop making content. We got live shows coming up. We got a banner. We're recapping 2023, a look ahead at 2024, going through news in the transfer portal. Coaching searches still are amongst us. So if this is the type of content you need to survive the offseason of college football, let's go ahead and smash that subscribe button down below. Give me your thoughts on who takes over as the face of college football. Tell your friends, your family, your mortal enemies, those fans of the Big 12, ACC, college football aficionados everywhere about this channel, because we are on the race to become the #1 YouTube show talking college football daily. Go ahead and follow me on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson. I call it Twitter. You call it X. We all call it Instagram. But that way, conversations surrounding our favorite sport never have to stop flowing. There's a reason why I say I don't think it's as easy as just turning to Kirby Smart, because I'm not sure we will ever see another run like we have with Nick Saban. One of the biggest blessings that came to Tuscaloosa was Saban was working in a time where the NIL collective wasn't a thing. It wasn't even thought up of. It didn't even have a mom and dad as a baseline. The transfer portal was still among quiets. There really wasn't a lot of parity in the sport, and you weren't able to utilize funds and resources and assets to your disposal. And also, there were several coaches who weren't at the same stage of Saban in their careers. That ultimately paved the way for 6 national championships, nearly 10 conference championships, countless #1 recruiting classes, and a bunch of NFL guys going out of Tuscaloosa. That's what happened there. But in today's game age, where NIL is a thing, where the transfer portal is running rampant, where there will always be constant change, even at primary dominant programs, it's very hard to say that that's going to duplicate again. There are some names that I'm leaving off this list because I think that their time is past in an era where they will be able to remain one of the faces of college football. These include guys like Kyle Whittingham at Utah, Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State, and Kirk Ferentz at Iowa. They're all good coaches, solidified coaches, proven commodities in the sport, but they were working in a day and age during their plight when Saban was reigning supreme. So you got to take them out. I'm also not listing Jim Harbaugh on this list. Case in point, we have no idea what his future is in college football. Could be another year, could be another week, could be another hour for all we're told. That's what we know about Jim Harbaugh right now. So he's not on the list. But let's start off with the first candidate. Easy one out there. It's Kirby Smart. Smart is probably the only coach in college football right now, ladies and gentlemen, that can actually say, I have a program like Alabama. No, not a great team that could beat Alabama. Not a great roster that on a Saturday could easily march into Tuscaloosa and kick the living dog crap out of Alabama. A program like Alabama. Consistent sustainability, #1 recruiting classes, countless names leaving the program, going off to the NFL for greener and grandeur pastures with a lot more millions attached to their name. Countless All-Americans, always able to fight for SEC championships, viewed at the start of the season as the team to beat in college football. Does that ring a bell? Like, I don't know, roughly around 2009 through 2017 in this place called Titletown. Does that seem like it hits any whistles? If it does, it's because of it's true. Kirby Smart is going to be the favorite to take over for college football because of what he learned in Tuscaloosa and brought his own pedigree down to Athens. Make no mistake, Kirby Smart is a disciple of Nick Saban, and he definitely took some pages out of the book of Saban while creating his own program. But this is Georgia. This is not Alabama 2.0. This is not a dynasty in the works because of it was hiding under the wings of Nick Saban. This is his own MO, and he has created it in his own image that will be sustainable well after he decides to hang up the whistle for good. Georgia is an elite of elite programs because of the way that they are taught, the way they are categorized, the way that we put them on a pedestal because of the way that they act, the way they carry themselves, the way that they are always attentive when it comes to the game. 29-game win streak doesn't happen simply because of you have a good coach. It happens because of you have a good program led by a great coach. So Kirby Smart absolutely is going to be the favorite to take over as the face for college football. Doesn't mean he's alone, though, because there's a guy who's also a Saban assistant doing wonders right now down in Austin, and they're carrying on that big SEC yellow and blue logo with a slogan that means it just means more, and it always means more down in Texas. Steve Sarkisian belongs on this list, too. When you look at a program like Texas, they have become a laughingstock among college football fans, and for good reason, because of they usually put the wagon before the horse. You know the Dallas Cowboys, how we always talk about Jerry Jones and what he was able to do with building rosters and turning the team into something of potential in the month of September, and then comes October, November, December, and heartbreak in January. Wash, rinse, repeat every single year for nearly 3 decades. Well, that was Texas for a while. They'd win a big game, and we'd say Texas is back. They'd win a big contest, and we would say Texas is on the come up. And then they would play a team like BYU or a Maryland or a Houston or anybody else that was a lesser opponent, and they would be shown the door in embarrassing fashion. And it was Texasing. Well, now you have the right guy leading the charge. Now you have the right head coach down on the 40 acres, and you have somebody with the proof of concept that if you come here, you leave better because of it. Texas has always been an elite program, ladies and gentlemen. I hate to break it to you, but even in the years when we were talking about Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State and what Florida State was doing with Jimbo and what was going on all across this country, Texas still was an elite program. They just hadn't harnessed in the inertia. And in the now world of college football where the NIL collective is reigning supreme, the Texas One Fund might be number one in NIL terms. Now that the transfer portal is going to be a major factor, Steve Sarkisian has relationships from the recruiting trail that now tells kids, hey, we didn't work the first time, but the second time, you're ready to put on your roots and go to work. Okay, now we got something cooking down here in Austin. And the proof of concept when it comes to relationships with players and how they're better suited to go to the NFL carries a bunch of volume for a guy like Steve Sarkisian. There is analogies out there that when you look at this Texas squad, for years, offensive line play, minuscule, defensive line play, a laughingstock, defensive backs, 5-star talents leave as 5th and 6th round picks. That was not the case with Steve Sarkisian running the show. More players are leaving Austin well-equipped to make it in the NFL, be on a 53-man roster, and also probably gain a few millions in the process, from Xavier Worthy to Adonai Mitchell to Tavondre Sweat to Byron Murphy. And now they're also implementing themselves like they are Alabama. Have you looked at the names that they've added in via the portal? They're not going for quantity. They're going for quality. And every single player added in has been somebody that was a difference maker at their last school in their other conference. That's what you're looking for. And you know what? Because of that, that's going to create a culture that's very sustainable like Alabama. And so you got to go ahead and put Steve Sarkisian on this list. Speaking of Alabama, why not Kalen DeBoer? Why not Kalen DeBoer? Because it's so easy right now for everyone in Tuscaloosa to say the sky is falling, it's black as all hell, and the epitome of my soul has now fallen into a black hole and will never be able to be pulled out. Because if I'm watching players be poached like they are just common household items on the shelves at HEB in the transfer portal, I'm not used to this lifestyle. I'm not used to this being a thing. But here's the other thing. You got a winner. You got a proven winner. You got a guy who's been able to have instantaneous success everywhere he's been. You might as well call him King Midas because everything he touched turns to gold. And this goes from even his time as an offensive coordinator at Fresno State. This goes to his time when he was the offensive coordinator at Indiana. This goes to his time when he was at Washington, Sioux Falls, and Fresno State as a head coach. It goes beyond just this past season in Seattle. It's everywhere. And now you're bringing a proof of concept that just led their team to a national championship appearance for the first time in over 30 years. You're going to bring in players via the portal that fit the system to a team and build a baseline and a foundation that will allow you to eventually go ahead and reign supreme. And you also have a great coaching staff, which is a huge blessing and benefit for a guy like DeBoer going into year one of the SEC. I don't know how many coaches are actually saying, you know what? I don't want to run my own program. I want to be a part of something special with Kalen DeBoer, a first-year head coach at a place where literally they have been the dynasty of college football and the Achilles heel to our success. I want to go ahead and be a part of that. what Kane Womack does, what Maurice Linguist does. Those are two schools that were affected not by the Nick Saban retirement because they got promotions, but because of they took an opportunity. So now he can build a staff. Now he can turn this roster into what he believes is going to keep them afloat. And also, when you see what they've been able to do with lesser talent, and now you're bringing in that pedigree with the script day, you're not going to get the Saban discount. It's not going to happen. But that doesn't mean you can't be a team that people are paying attention to, especially in 2024, 2025, all of that beyond. Absolutely, Kalen DeBoer belongs in the conversation for face of college football. And so does Lane Kiffin, because Kiffin is the architect of what college football has become. Transfer portal rankings mean something. Recruiting rankings mean something. And if you have good on both and you see the proof of concept work, you're usually going to benefit from it. Mike Norvell has done a pretty good job being the transfer portal prince, but until someone dethrones Kiffin on a regular basis, he still is the transfer portal king. And it goes past just simply adding in players. It's the players you target and the players that leave for better pastures. Everyone who has walked into Ole Miss via the transfer portal, outside of maybe 2 or 3 names, feels more confident about their draft stock, their pedigree, and what they were able to produce before they even go ahead and touch down in the NFL. So Kiffin's got a proof of concept. You come here, you benefit from it. We benefit from it. It's a win-win for all involved. And also, you look at the talent that's being retained this year that's going to set the tone for a brand new version of the SEC, an SEC that no longer features divisions. So just the 2 best teams go ahead and strut their stuff in Atlanta. Jackson Dart, Trey Harris. You brought over Logan Diggs from LSU. You brought over Caden Priestcorn last year. You also added in Juice Wells. You brought in Princely Uiagalelei. You brought over Walter Nolan. You got a roster. You got a team that can be really good. And once people see, oh, look, that team's doing really good things, they're going to say that that's a place that I want to go play. So I think Lane Kiffin belongs on this list as well. I think Marcus Freeman is a name that needs to at least be in the conversation. And I'm not saying that Notre Dame is going to become this national champion overnight sensation. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that now with the 12-team playoff, now with the pedigree of what we know Notre Dame is, and also what we think that their schedule will be, they go 12-0, they go 11-1, you're not keeping them out of the dance. That's for damn sure. But also, Marcus Freeman's doing things that Brian Kelly envisioned, but never could accomplish. And I'm not saying Brian Kelly can't recruit. His number 1 recruiting class of 2025 would tell otherwise. But Notre Dame is a special institution, and it's a private institution, and they care as much about academia as Athletica. And so because of that, there are kids that will immediately scoff at the opportunity to go there because if they understand there is more than just the game of the gridiron at the disposal. Well, that's not the case with Marcus Freeman. Top 5 recruiting class going into 2025. A top 10 recruiting class in 2024, a top 15 recruiting class in 2023. And also when you look at this team and where they've come, how many kids you are seeing transfer in that are difference makers from the jump and a proof of concept that kind of carries weight. Now you're also bringing back Mike Denbrock as your offensive coordinator. That's a recipe for success and a recipe that could eventually lead to you being in the playoff, hosting a playoff game, and then going and playing against another opponent at a neutral site location, which could lead to you pulling off the upset. I'm not ready to throw in the towel on Notre Dame, and neither should you, especially with a guy like Marcus Freeman, who's young, he's up and coming, he seems bought into the system. He's hell-bent on turning South Bend, Indiana into public enemy number 1 in the world of college football, and he's doing a pretty damn good job so far of building a foundation that is sustainable for years on end. So I think it would be foolish not to mention a guy like Marcus Freeman in the running. And there's 2 more for you. Number 1, Lincoln Riley. Hate to break it. If he can fix defenses, he's in a really good spot. We know what the offensive concept has been. We know how he's been able to get to the college football playoff. We know how he's been able to win conference championships. And we know that players who play on the offensive side of the football usually end up strutting their stuff on Sundays in some way, shape, or form. Now, defensively, he needs a lot of work, and I'm glad that he was willing to humble himself, just like Eli Drinkowitz did a season ago. I got to do what's best for this team. I got to put the team mantra first over what we have. And so he did. He hires D'Anton Lynn as his defensive coordinator. UCLA was one of the best defenses in college football. Matt Entz is now coming over from Fargo after winning countless national championships to be your linebackers coach. You brought over Doug Belk, and you brought over a multitude of coaches from the NFL level. So you have a completely total revamped defense at your helm that is going to make you a legit threat in the Big Ten. Maybe not 2024, but by 2025, if you can start recruiting properly when it comes to playing in the trenches, being more physical up front, that's a recipe for disaster and a recipe that I don't think many people are ready to see. It absolutely belongs in that conversation. I want to throw Brian Kelly on this list, but it seems a little far-fetched only because of I don't know how much longer he has. But say he's there for another decade and say he leads LSU to 4 college football playoff appearances and 2 national title bouts. I think that's enough to say that he would at least be in consideration for the face of college football. A lot of the time, though, he was playing second fiddle to Dabo. He was playing second fiddle to Harbaugh. He was playing second fiddle to Saban, and then eventually Smart and Lincoln Riley. But the guy's a good coach, and if he wants to use a foghorn leghorn accent every time, if it helps him land #1 recruiting classes, who are you as Tiger fans to go ahead and not take the bait? Lastly, Mike Norvell. Mike Norvell is at a major institution that right now still resides in a conference where I believe that you can win every single season. Oh, wait, we do have one more after this. My apologies. But Mike Norvell belongs to this list because there's a proof of concept when it comes to offensive formalities and transition with the transfer portal. You got to include him. If you're including Lane Kiffin at a place like Ole Miss, where they play in a conference that is lethal every single Saturday, you can't keep out Mike Norvell. He absolutely is a guy that is going to be able to transform a roster every offseason, turn it into something promising, and lead your team at least to conversations of making it to Charlotte, thus eventually taking you to the college football playoff. And now you see that more players are buying into what he is selling, and he is bought in for the foreseeable future. Very hard not to say that he is on the short list. And last, finally, I swear on this one, it's Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning did the ultimate thing that many people dropped their jaw at. He said no to Alabama. Now, we don't know if he got offered a contract. We don't know if he even got an interview or if Greg Byrne ultimately turned his sights to Kalen DeBoer. We don't know any of that. But what we do know is that Alabama fans, on the second that Saban hit the retirement button, they started calling for Dan Lanning. They started saying, we want Dan back here in Tuscaloosa. We want him to be our guy to lead this program to new heights. Well, he said no. And he said no because if he likes where his situation is now in the likes of the Big Ten. Here's the rule when it comes to coaching. And a lot of people have problems with this because they say that your coach abandoned you overnight. They left you for greener pastures. It's true. They did. But they also have to look at the grand scheme of things. A team like Oregon, with the roster that they have, the way they've been able to recruit, and the way that they've been able to develop talent, like a Frankenstein monster, if you will, in terms of establishing dominance, is second to none. They were built like a team that could find success in the ACC, the SEC, the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and they've added in more talent that's going to make them a viable threat, not just in 2024, but 2025. And that's because Dan Lanning isn't going anywhere. And he took the time to make an incredible video, literally, basically telling recruits everywhere, I'm not leaving, so you should come here. And if you finish top 3 in the Big Ten every offseason, you're going to the college football playoff. You may have to host a playoff game. You might have to travel on the road for a playoff game, but you're playing in the playoff. And now at a place like the Big Ten, why leave? Why leave when you're very content at what you're doing? And especially when there's a proof of concept that everything that you have touched is basically turning into something marvelous. It's very hard for me not to consider a guy like Dan Lanning on this list. But those are the names that you have to know for the new faces of college football. And in a day and age where we are going to see NIL flip some kids, where you're going to see the transfer portal take talents that are proven commodities and studs at their schools to go elsewhere, they are all going to have an opportunity in a fair playing ground. One of the best things that happened with Nick Saban's retirement, and I don't say this because of I want to hurt Alabama fans. I am an Alabama fan. I grew up an Alabama fan. I'm a college football fan in general, but I grew up as an Alabama alum. The best thing that happened to Nick Saban was now there was more parity in the sport than ever before. Every one of those coaches has an opportunity to become the next face of college football, all the way from Lane Kiffin to those up in Dan Lanning and Eugene. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.